How a few lines in a poem led thousands to risk death for buried gold. How a young woman's disappearance at a notorious hotel sparked internet conspiracy theories that overshadowed the tragic truth. How a boy's body discarded in a cardboard box finally got his name back after 65 years. Today, we're exploring the most notorious Buzzfeed Unsolved mysteries that have finally been solved. These weren't just any cold cases, they were the mysteries that seemed destined to remain unsolved forever. But recent developments have changed everything. The answers we're about to reveal will shock you, and the journey to finding these solutions is just as fascinating as the mysteries themselves. Case number 1, the water tank mystery, the Elisa Lam disappearance. Picture this: hotel guests brushing their teeth, taking showers, and drinking tap water that had been contaminated by a decomposing human body for over 2 weeks. They had no idea what was flowing from their faucets. This nightmare scenario became reality at the Cecil Hotel in downtown Los Angeles, setting the stage for one of the internet's most discussed mysteries. The case exploded into public consciousness when security footage emerged, showing 21-year-old Elisa Lam's final moments in the hotel elevator. The grainy video captured her pressing multiple buttons, peering out nervously, and making strange hand gestures as if responding to someone unseen. She appeared to be hiding from something, or someone, just outside the elevator doors. The footage looked like a scene from a horror movie, but this was terrifyingly real. Elisa had vanished during her solo trip to Los Angeles in January 2013. The Cecil Hotel, infamous for its dark history of suicides and murders, became the center of her disappearance. When hotel guests started complaining about low water pressure and strange tasting water, maintenance workers climbed onto the roof to investigate. What they found inside one of the 4 large water tanks would haunt them forever. The discovery raised impossible questions. How did Elisa access the locked rooftop? A maintenance worker found the tank lid open, contradicting online rumors of a locked roof. These logistics seemed to rule out suicide, sparking wild speculation across social media platforms. The conspiracy theories multiplied faster than investigators could debunk them. The heartbreaking truth emerged through careful investigation. Elisa suffered from bipolar disorder and had stopped taking her medication during her trip. Hotel records showed she had been moved to a single room after disturbing other guests. LAPD sent tracking dogs followed her scent to a fire escape window that led up to the roof, showing she went up on her own. The real tragedy wasn't supernatural, it was a young woman's mental health crisis that ended in devastating consequences. The internet's obsession with conspiracy theories had overshadowed the genuine human suffering at the heart of this case. But some mysteries involve killers who deliberately try to erase their victims' identities forever. Case number 2, the lady of the dunes who stumped investigators for 50 years. A jogger discovered something horrifying in the sand dunes of Race Point Beach in Provincetown, Massachusetts, in July 1974. The woman's body had been mutilated beyond recognition. Her hands were severed completely. Every single tooth had been removed from her mouth. A massive head injury had crushed part of her skull. This wasn't random violence, someone had methodically erased every possible way to identify her. The killer had planned this crime with chilling precision. He knew exactly how investigators would try to identify an unknown victim. Fingerprints. Gone with the hands. Dental records. Impossible without teeth. Facial recognition. The skull damage made that nearly hopeless. Someone wanted this woman to disappear forever, and they nearly succeeded. Investigators refused to give up. They exhumed her remains multiple times over the decades, searching for any clue they might have missed. Each time, they came up empty. The case consumed resources and haunted detectives who worked it. She became known as the Lady of the Dunes, but that name felt hollow without knowing who she really was. Suspects emerged over the years, each one seeming more promising than the last. Notorious mobsters with connections to the area. Serial killers who operated during that time period. Local criminals with violent histories. Each lead turned into another dead end. The case seemed destined to remain unsolved forever. Then in October 2022, the FBI announced a breakthrough that stunned investigators. Advanced DNA technology finally cracked Massachusetts' oldest unidentified homicide victim. Investigative genealogy combined traditional detective work with cutting-edge genetic analysis. The Lady of the Dunes was Ruth Marie Terry, born in Tennessee in 1936. She had connections to Michigan, California, and Massachusetts before her brutal murder. The breakthrough revealed an even more disturbing truth. Her husband, Guy Rockwell Moldavin, was a known suspect in earlier murders and now emerges as her killer. While Ruth lay nameless in her grave for nearly 50 years, Moldavin lived comfortably until his death in 2002. He escaped justice, but he couldn't escape science. But not all mysteries involve such calculated cruelty. Sometimes, the most dangerous pursuits are the ones that promise adventure and riches. Case number 3, the Forest Fenn treasure hunt that turned deadly. Imagine finding a treasure chest worth over $2 million hidden somewhere in the Rocky Mountains. That's exactly what millionaire art dealer Forrest Fenn promised when he launched his modern treasure hunt in 2010. He filled a bronze chest with gold coins, gems, and jewelry, then buried it somewhere in the vast wilderness. The only clues? A cryptic 24-line poem in his memoir that would guide seekers to unimaginable riches. The romantic idea captured America's imagination instantly. Thousands of treasure hunters flocked to the Rocky Mountains, armed with metal detectors and wild theories about Fenn's poem. They analyzed every word, every punctuation mark, convinced they had cracked the code. Weekend warriors became obsessed adventurers. Families planned entire vacations around the search. The hunt became a nationwide phenomenon. But dreams of discovery turned into nightmares. 5 treasure hunters died in accidents searching for Fenn's cache. The mounting death toll sparked outrage. The chief of New Mexico police publicly called for Fenn to end the hunt, stating he was putting lives at risk. Families who lost loved ones demanded answers. The romantic adventure had become a deadly obsession that claimed real lives. On June 6, 2020, Fenn finally announced the treasure had been found. The decade-long search was over. He revealed it was discovered in Wyoming, under a canopy of stars in lush forested vegetation. But who found it remained a mystery. The shocking answer came months later. Jack Stoof, a former Buzzfeed Unsolved writer and medical student from Michigan, publicly revealed in December 2020 that he was the finder. He had used research from the show to guide his search. The connection between the treasure hunt and true crime media added an unexpected twist to the story. Even after the discovery, legal battles erupted. A French treasure hunter filed a $10 million lawsuit against Fenn's estate, claiming fraud. Conspiracy theories multiplied about the treasure's true location and whether it was ever really buried. But some real-life mysteries are far more sinister than any treasure hunt could ever be. Case number 4, the pizza delivery that became a real-life horror movie. On August 28, 2003, Brian Douglas Wells turned this surreal nightmare into reality at a PNC bank in Erie, Pennsylvania. Witnesses said Wells calmly waited in line, sucking a lollipop and swinging a bag of $8,702. He handed the teller a note demanding money, but this wasn't a typical robbery. Wells had become a human time bomb in the most twisted heist ever conceived. The bomb was handcuffed to Wells's neck and came with a 9-page handwritten note addressed to the bomb hostage. It outlined an elaborate scavenger hunt designed to keep Wells alive through a series of strictly timed tasks. The instructions listed 9 locations where he had to collect keys, each step supposedly delaying the bomb's detonation. The note warned, "Act now, think later, or you will die." Any attempt to contact authorities would trigger immediate explosion. But this was a race Wells could never win. The bomb detonated in front of police officers, blasting a fist-sized hole through his chest. He died almost instantly, just 3 minutes before the bomb squad arrived. Police couldn't retrieve the bomb in time. The cruel truth. The route couldn't be completed in the allotted time anyway. Wells was a dead man walking from the moment the collar clicked around his neck. The investigation uncovered a twisted web of relationships involving murder, betrayal, and frozen bodies. William Rothstein called 911 to report a body in his freezer, James Roden, shot by Marjorie Dale Armstrong. She needed the money to inherit from her father, leading to this elaborate scheme. Confessions revealed the shocking truth about Wells's involvement. Jessica Hoopsick admitted she set him up, providing his name and delivery schedule to the conspirators in exchange for money and drugs. FBI affidavits reveal that Rothstein and Dale Armstrong later confessed to orchestrating the plot and killing Wells to cover their tracks. But some killers managed to stay hidden for much longer than anyone could imagine. Case number 5, the grim sleeper serial killer who hid in plain sight for decades. He didn't fit the serial killer profile, an LA trash collector who worked as a garage attendant at an LAPD station. Lonnie Franklin Jr. looked like any ordinary neighbor, but he stalked the streets of South Central Los Angeles for over 2 decades, leaving a trail of bodies in his wake. Between 1985 and 2007, Franklin murdered at least 10 women, earning himself a chilling nickname that would haunt investigators for years. They called him the Grim Sleeper because of his unusual pattern. Franklin would kill multiple victims, then disappear for years at a time. He took a 14-year break between murders, making it nearly impossible for police to connect the crimes. This wasn't random violence, it was calculated predation with built-in camouflage. Franklin targeted the most vulnerable women in Los Angeles. His victims were often involved in sex work or struggled with drug addiction. They were found shot at close range with a .25 caliber pistol, their bodies discarded in desolate alleyways like trash. The brutality reflected his intent to degrade and dehumanize them completely. The investigation faced serious obstacles from the start. Because the victims were primarily black women from marginalized communities, the cases didn't receive immediate priority from law enforcement. The Black Coalition Fighting Back Serial Murders formed in 1989 to protest the LAPD's lack of attention to these crimes. Years passed without answers. The breakthrough came through revolutionary DNA technology. After collecting DNA from crime scenes for years without matches, investigators discovered something incredible. Franklin's son Christopher had been arrested for a weapons offense, and his DNA showed a familial match to the crime scenes. This technique led them straight to the killer. When police raided Franklin's home, they uncovered a horrifying collection. Photos and videos of 180 women, some nude or engaged in sexual acts, revealed the true scope of his predatory behavior. These images served as trophies, showing his desire to control and possess his victims. The sole survivor, Inayatra Washington, provided crucial testimony. Franklin had offered her a ride in his orange Ford Pinto, then shot and raped her before pushing her from the vehicle. Her survival and brave testimony helped secure his conviction. Police even found her Polaroid in Franklin's garage, a chilling reminder of his calculated cruelty. But sometimes the most terrifying threats don't come from strangers lurking in dark alleys, they come from much closer to home. Case number 6, the New Jersey watcher who terrorized a family. The letter arrived at 657 Boulevard in Westfield, New Jersey, just days after Derek and Maria Broadus purchased their dream home for $1.35 million in 2014. The envelope was addressed to the new owner, but the contents would shatter their sense of security forever. Someone calling themselves the Watcher had been observing the house for decades, and now they wanted the new family to know it. The letters contained chilling details that proved this wasn't a random prank. The anonymous writer knew the children's nicknames and described their daily routines with disturbing accuracy. They watched the kids play in the yard, noted when they left for school, and seemed to monitor every aspect of family life. "I am the Watcher. Bring me your young blood," one letter declared, turning parental protection into a nightmare. The escalating threats forced the Broadus family to abandon their home before they could even move in properly. The psychological torment was unbearable. How could they raise children in a place where someone watched their every move? The case sparked a neighborhood investigation that turned neighbors against each other, creating an atmosphere of suspicion and paranoia. Police investigated everyone from former residents to disgruntled contractors who worked on the property. Some theorized about jealous neighbors upset by the family's renovations. Others suggested elaborate hoaxes designed to drive down property values. The investigation hit dead ends repeatedly, frustrating detectives who couldn't crack the anonymous harassment. Investigators employed handwriting analysis and behavioral profiling to identify the writer, but the anonymous nature of the letters made identification nearly impossible. The intimate knowledge of the family's activities suggested the stalker lived nearby or had close access to their lives. The case remains officially unsolved, though the Broadus family eventually sold the house at a significant loss. Their ordeal proves that anonymous threats can destroy lives even when the perpetrator remains hidden. But some mysteries begin with bodies that carry no identification at all. Case number 7, the Tamam Shud mystery. A well-dressed man lay motionless on Somerton Beach near Adelaide, Australia, on December 1, 1948. His body rested against the seawall with his legs extended and feet crossed, as if he had simply fallen asleep forever. But this wasn't a peaceful death. Someone had deliberately erased his identity. Every label had been cut from his clothing. His pockets contained ordinary items, a train ticket, chewing gum, matches, but nothing that could reveal who he was. The mystery deepened when investigators discovered a hidden fob pocket in his trousers containing a torn piece of paper. The scrap came from a rare 1941 New Zealand edition of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, bearing the Persian phrase Tamam Shud, meaning it is finished. The pathologist, John Dwyer, concluded, "I am quite convinced the death could not have been natural. The poison I suggested was a barbiturate, or a soluble hypnotic." Yet no poison was ever found. Police located a brown suitcase at Adelaide railway station that belonged to the dead man. Inside, they found clothes with all identifying marks removed, except for 3 names, T. Keane, Keane, and Keane. The suitcase also contained orange waxed thread not available in Australia, which matched repairs on the man's trousers. Someone had planned this erasure carefully. For decades, theories exploded across the globe. Some believed he was a Cold War spy carrying secret codes. Others suggested a tragic romance gone wrong. The case inspired countless books and documentaries, cementing its place as Australia's greatest unsolved mystery. A coded message found in the back of the Rubaiyat remains uncracked to this day. The breakthrough came in July 2022 when researchers used advanced DNA analysis from hair samples taken from his death mask to identify the Somerton Man as Carl Charles Webb, an electrical engineer born in 1905. The identification emerged through genetic genealogy, tracing his family tree until researchers found someone who matched their profile. Webb's identity revealed the surprisingly ordinary truth behind one of history's most enigmatic cases. The most mysterious deaths sometimes have the most mundane explanations. But some victims remain nameless for far different reasons, because someone wanted them forgotten completely. Case number 8, Philadelphia's boy in the box who finally got his name back. A hunter stumbled upon something that would haunt Philadelphia forever on February 25, 1957. Deep in the Fox Chase Woods, a small naked body lay crumpled inside a cardboard box that once held a J.C. Penney bassinet. The 4-year-old boy had been severely beaten, and malnourished, then discarded like unwanted trash. Someone had thrown away a child's life. The case consumed the city from day one. The Philadelphia Inquirer distributed 400,000 flyers featuring the boy's post-mortem photograph. Police released an image showing the child fully dressed and seated, hoping someone would recognize him. Despite massive media coverage across the Delaware Valley, no one came forward. The boy became known as America's unknown child, and those heartbreaking words were carved into his tombstone. Philadelphia refused to let him be forgotten. Citizens visited his grave regularly, leaving flowers and toys. The Vidocq Society, a volunteer group that assists with cold cases, adopted his case as a mission. Investigators exhumed his body in 1998 to extract DNA, then again in 2000, 2013, and 2021 for additional samples. Each scientific advancement brought new hope. Theories multiplied over the decades. Some suspected a foster home located 1.5 miles from where the body was found. Others investigated a woman called M who accused her mother of acquiring and killing the child. Police checked every lead, but each one crumbled under scrutiny. The foster children were all accounted for, and the family wasn't involved. The breakthrough came in November 2022 when DNA analysis finally cracked the impossible case. Investigators matched the boy's DNA to a distant cousin through 23andMe. Traditional genealogical research and historical records filled in the gaps. A court order revealed his birth certificate and parents' names. Joseph Augustus Zarelli was born on January 13, 1953. He lived in West Philadelphia near 61st and Market Streets before his brutal death. The Vidocq Society promised to add his real name to his grave. The homicide investigation continues today, proving that even the most forgotten victims can eventually find justice. But some discoveries in peaceful woods reveal far more complex family secrets than anyone could imagine. Case number 9, the Bear Brook barrel bodies that revealed a family's dark secret. A hunter walking through the peaceful woods of Bear Brook State Park in New Hampshire made a discovery that would haunt investigators for decades. On November 10, 1985, he stumbled upon a metal 55-gallon drum hidden among the trees near a burned-down store. Inside, wrapped in plastic, were the remains of an adult woman and a young girl. Both had died from blunt force trauma, their bodies discarded like garbage in this remote location. The case became even more disturbing 15 years later. On May 9, 2000, investigators found a second barrel just yards away from the first discovery. How had they missed it during the original investigation? This barrel contained 2 more young girls, also victims of blunt force trauma. 4 bodies. 2 barrels. 0 identities. The decades-long mystery consumed investigators across multiple states. Who were these victims? Why were they murdered? The lack of identification made the case nearly impossible to solve. DNA testing revealed that the woman and 2 of the girls were maternally related, suggesting a mother and her children. But the 4th victim remained a puzzle piece that didn't fit. Advanced forensic techniques finally began unraveling the web of relationships. Genetic genealogy emerged as the key breakthrough technology. DNA profiling showed complex family connections that investigators had never suspected. The killer wasn't a random stranger, he was family. In 2017, the FBI identified Terry Peder Rasmussen as the perpetrator. DNA analysis confirmed he was the father of 1 victim, a 2 to 4-year-old girl. The twisted family connections revealed his horrific logic. He had murdered his own daughter along with her mother and sister. The victims were finally identified in June 2019. Molly's Elizabeth Honeychurch and her daughters Marie Elizabeth Vaughan and Sarah Lynn McQuartus had been missing since the late 1970s. The middle child, Rasmussen's daughter, remains unidentified even today. This case demonstrates that families can harbor the darkest secrets imaginable, and that advancing science can eventually expose even the most carefully hidden crimes. But sometimes, the most heartbreaking mysteries involve families torn apart by circumstances beyond their control. Case number 10, kidnapped baby Melissa who lived a stolen life. A mother's worst nightmare unfolded in Fort Worth, Texas, in August 1971 when 21-month-old Melissa Highsmith vanished from her home. Alta Pantinko had recently separated from Melissa's father and desperately needed childcare. She placed an ad in the newspaper, hoping to find someone trustworthy to watch her baby daughter. A woman calling herself Ruth Johnson responded to the ad and was hired without a face-to-face meeting. When the babysitter arrived to pick up Melissa, she wore white gloves and a scarf despite the summer heat. The roommate who handed over the child found this detail strange, but it was too late to change anything. The search for Melissa consumed the Highsmith family for 51 years. They never stopped wondering if their loved one was even alive. Her father, Jeffrey Highsmith, submitted his DNA to 23andMe in a desperate attempt to find relatives. The case had gone cold despite extensive investigations and media attention. Police followed countless leads that led nowhere. The family faced decades of heartbreak and uncertainty, not knowing if they would ever see Melissa again. The breakthrough came when DNA testing revealed matches with 3 of Melissa's grandchildren. These children belonged to Melanie Brown, also known as Melanie Walden, who lived in Fort Worth. A subsequent DNA test confirmed that Melanie Brown was actually Melissa Highsmith, bringing an end to the decades-long mystery. The emotional reunion took place on the weekend after Thanksgiving 2022. Her parents collapsed in tears, calling it the best day of their lives. Melissa's sister, Victoria Garner, wrote on Facebook that she was overjoyed and still trying to comprehend that her sister was right in front of her. The family announced, "We found Melissa," highlighting how DNA made the discovery possible. The shocking truth emerged about Melissa's stolen life. She had lived in Fort Worth for most of her existence, unaware that she had been kidnapped. She had lived her entire life under a different identity, never knowing her true origins. But DNA technology's power to solve impossible cases reached its ultimate test when investigators faced a predator who seemed untouchable. In the past, law enforcement officials had to rely on traditional methods like fingerprints and witness testimony, but those tools weren't enough. Detective after detective worked these cases, but each one faced the same frustrating dead ends. These cases prove that modern technology has completely transformed our ability to solve the impossible. DNA analysis and genetic genealogy have cracked mysteries that stumped investigators for decades. Families who waited 50 years for answers finally received closure through scientific breakthroughs that didn't exist when these crimes occurred. The Lady of the Dunes remained nameless for nearly half a century until advanced forensic techniques revealed her identity. Joseph Augustus Zarelli waited 65 years to get his name back. Each solved case represents hope for thousands of other families still searching for answers. From mental health crises to genealogy, science reshaped investigations. If these stories moved you, hit like and subscribe for more incredible real crime revelations.